Lords of the jury, we are on verdict watch on day 10 of the state versus Hannah Gutierrez. The defense called a director witness for their first and last witness of today. They did not call Hannah's father, Thel Reed, and the witness did not add a ton, but on cross-examination seemed to undo what OSHA testified to, because on cross-examination, the director admitted that at the end of the day, it's the armorer's responsibility. The armorer is the boss when it comes to the guns on set, not production, not the director, not the first AD. The armorer is responsible for the weapons on set. And then we got into closing arguments. The state brought quite a lot of exhibits into closing arguments, photos of where the silver primers were. And the state really leaned into the fact that the dummy rounds that came from Seth Kinney arrived on set with Sarah Zachary October 12th. And those dummy rounds did have silver primers in them, but they were antiqued. They were patinaed. They were darker. They were not shiny brass. And the bullets or the rounds that we see with shiny brass and silver primers in Jensen Eckel's gun belt, in Alec Baldwin's bandolier, and ultimately in Alec Baldwin's gun that shot and killed Helena were not brought onto set by Seth Kinney. And she said they were in the same box that Hannah brought onto set, arguing again that Hannah is the one who brought the live rounds on set. And the prosecution showed the enhanced photo of that styrofoam insert with all the rounds in it on her lap from October 10th, 2 days before Seth Kinney's dummies are on set, showing the silver primed round that is not patinaed, and tying that all together to show that the prosecution believes that Hannah brought the live rounds onto set and failed to do her job by finding them in all of her safety checks and ended up loading them into the weapon that killed Helena Hutchins. In their closing argument, the defense argued production, Baldwin, Sarah Zachary, Seth Kinney, Dave Halls. They didn't do their job. But where I thought the defense stepped in it in closing is they played that video of Alec Baldwin shooting like, this on camera. And then Joel Souza yells, "Cut." Baldwin fires another blank, and Joel Souza goes, "Motherfucker." And then the defense used that video to argue that it was not foreseeable to Hannah that Baldwin would go off script and point the gun at the church at Helena Hutchins. I think it proves the exact opposite point, that Baldwin pointing a weapon somewhere was foreseeable, that live rounds showing up on set were foreseeable, and it was Hannah's job to check them. However, the jury instructions on involuntary manslaughter are multi-stepped and complex. It's going to take the jury time to walk through them. We also learned in jury instruction that there is a lesser included charge. They are allowing the jury to decide between the involuntary manslaughter and the misdemeanor negligent handling of a firearm. So if the jury feels empathetic for Hannah, even though they're not supposed to let empathy sway their opinion, but they are human, if they feel that production didn't allow her to do her job well, they could use that lesser included crime. And then we saw the prosecution and defense arguing over the tampering with evidence charge. The prosecution never really argued how the tampering with evidence was evidence of the involuntary manslaughter. The defense brought it up in closing. The prosecution didn't even touch it or try to explain it in their rebuttal and seemed to let it go. I think in this case, though the defense is arguing Hannah Gutierrez Reed is the sacrificial lamb of production, I think the sacrificial lamb of this charging document is the tampering with evidence charge, and that the prosecutor's like, yeah, if you guys want to throw her a bone, just give her that one. Don't convict her on that one. What the prosecution wants is that involuntary manslaughter charge. And we will see if they get it. The jury is out. I know you guys feel nervous. Take a breath. They're going to read this verdict. It's going to be...
Find the defendant, Hannah Gutierrez, guilty of involuntary manslaughter as charged in count 1.
Guilty on count 1 of invol.
We find the defendant, Hannah Gutierrez, not guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in count 2.
Not guilty on the tampering.
You didn't let me get those forms, retrieve those forms from you.
The jury's going to be escorted from the courtroom. They're going to have to figure out now if this defendant's going to be remanded into custody. They're going to have to set a sentencing date. She is facing 18 months in state prison.
Your Honor, we would request that Ms. Gutierrez be taken into custody.
Mr. Bowles?
The state's requesting remanded to custody. Mr. Bowles is going to have to argue that his client should stay out of custody.
We would request under Your Honor, Rule 5402, release pending sentencing in this court's discretion under the same conditions or other conditions as this court would deem necessary. Ms. Gutierrez has been on conditions. She has not violated those conditions. She has voluntarily appeared at all court proceedings. Your Honor, I would request this court to continue conditions or whatever conditions this court would have.
He's asking to continue release.
Thank you.
I don't know who the blonde woman is. I don't know if that's Hannah's mother, but Hannah is getting remanded into custody. I imagine the woman that looks like she's about to burst into tears is in fact her mother. The court is remanding her into custody. I'm actually a little surprised by that. So she is going to be handcuffed in court and taken into the back and held in jail until her sentencing. I'm surprised by that.
Or whatever conditions this court would have on release.
All right, thank you. I'm going to remand you, and the reason why I'm going to remand you is you are now convicted. And so, and this is a death. It's a criminal negligence, but it's still a death. And so, deputies, you're going to take her into custody, and we will set a sentencing date. What is the best, what do you want to look like on that? And we need an order of remand, do we? Okay.
If court feels very casual to you, I understand that.
In terms of the sentencing date?
Yes.
At the court's convenience.
She's going to take off her jewelry and her earrings.
There are 2 weeks in May that I'm unavailable. Those are the last 2 weeks of May.
All right. Mr. Bowles?
Your Honor, as soon as this court
Forthwith.
has time, will be available.
All right, so,
Sir, why do you need to look up the criminal rules on your phone? They're asking for sentencing in May, which means she will be in custody until that time.
do you have any conflict like that? She said May. Do you have any conflict?
I don't know for sure, Your Honor, that I could. I do have other trials, but I think mid-May.
Well, I can do it sooner.
Okay.
I just wondered if you had any conflicts along the way.
We have time in April.
Okay,
Sure.
all right, okay. All right, anything else before the court?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, we're in recess.
And that's it.
Yep.
Guilty, handcuffed, jewelry off, into custody. Her lawyers are going to tell her, I'm sure we're going to talk to you. We're going to be in touch with you tonight. Take a deep breath. You're going to be okay. It looks like she's saying goodbye to family in court. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and a little bit, if they didn't break for lunch, and came back with a guilty verdict on the involuntary manslaughter and a not guilty verdict on the tampering with evidence, which does not surprise me at all that they split the verdict in that way. The tampering charge was not a good charge. I don't think there's enough evidence to really support it, and I'm not surprised that that's what the jury did. But it seems that they felt very, very strongly that Hannah Gutierrez is responsible for checking the weapons on the set of Rust, and that she did not do that job well. She did that job recklessly, negligently, and did so causing a death, which is how they got to the guilty verdict on that involuntary manslaughter. For deep dives into the stories that I covered here, you can find them on my YouTube channel at The Emily D. Baker and The Emily Show podcast. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday. The podcast goes live on Wednesdays. And if you want to stay in the loop with everything I'm doing, receive the fastest notifications out there, and get more Law Nerd community, join me at lawnerdapp.com, our free app for iOS and Android.